Hey guys, just wanted to show you this little chainsaw I got here. It's an MS250, so it's a light duty use homeowner saw. I think this one's got a 16-inch bar on it, 14 or a 16-inch bar. Good little saw for, casual use. Would I recommend you start a log cutting career with it? No. But if you're a homeowner that does firewood, or a landowner that does some light cutting here and there, you can't really go wrong with this thing. But this particular one has a bit of a problem. I just want to show you, and I'm going to make a few-part video here to show you how to fix it. So I'm going to get this thing fired up, and we'll see if we can get her to do her dance. This saw is ice cold. It hasn't been running in about a week and a half. So basically, to start it, you squeeze the throttle and put it in the choke mode. You can see it right there. And give her a few of these. There you go. When it tries to fire up like that, you return the button to the start position. Not the choke position down below, but the start position. So as you can see, when you try to rev this saw, it sputters and stalls out. No matter how long you let it sit and warm up, it will sputter and stall out. One thing you can sometimes try is to crack the gas cap and let some ambient air pressure in there. Sometimes you get a vacuum in these and it'll starve the engine of fuel. You'll know right away if that worked, because when you go to start it again, so you can see it's better, but it still has a hesitation to it. What I'm going to do is take the carb apart, remove the carb, take it apart, and do a video of cleaning it up, putting it back together, and setting it. And hopefully it works out, runs good, and you guys get to see how this thing should perform. Alright, so we got this thing on the workbench here. Gonna pop the carburetor off right there. Just gonna take this carburetor apart and give it a clean, blow it out with some air. We're not gonna replace anything just yet, but yeah, we'll see if that helps, makes it run a little better. Pardon me. Let's use some brains here. I just cleaned up my workbench a little bit, so it's kind of enjoyable to do a job. So there's the carburetor right there. It's held in with a couple pieces of linkage, one for the throttle and one for the choke and one for the throttle. And then there's a couple of rubber tubes that sort of hold it, but you can usually flex those out of the way and pull this guy out. There's also a fuel line down at the bottom. You want to just crack your fuel cap to let any pressure out, because if you pop that fuel line off without popping the cap, it'll end up spraying gas all over you. So there's our fuel line. choke rod. It's good to put these in some kind of an order on your bench, so when you go to put it back together, you're not mixing things up, because it'll end up costing you time and effort. I like to pop the cover off, this handle cover off. So what you do is you actually go up from underneath. I think it's a flathead or a Torx. A handy dandy multi-Torx bit here. This gives you access to the, don't lose the screw, this gives you access to the throttle linkage. Pop it off like that. So I've already found that at some point someone's gone and had this carb off, because you can see that the idle speed screw wasn't properly installed in this tube, so someone's had this off before and didn't put it back on correctly. We got that guy there. Again, there's a linkage, so don't lose that. Set it aside so it's obvious what direction it goes back into the saw. See if we got it off. So now we're going to pop this carburetor apart. Just going to fire up the compressor so I can get a little bit of air to blow the dust off.
It's like, hey, you're 19 years old, you've never even played any pro hockey ever. Here's your first game against the Sounding Show. It did not go well.
Alright. Got my air gun. Just gonna give this a quick clean. Alright. Gonna take your favorite Robertson screwdriver. Sorry, Phillips screwdriver. Undo this side. What you're looking for is to see how stiff this carburetor gasket is. It should flutter. If it clicks or if it's hard as a rock, it needs to be replaced. That's still usable, I think. That'll pump. It's not as soft as it's supposed to be. It's older, but it's not rock hard, so I'm thinking we'll be okay if we reuse that. You've got a jet down inside. This is your needle valve. When you open this side up, you want to look for dirt, debris. Sometimes you get like a white dusty scale in there, which will plug up orifices, but so far this looks pretty clean inside. You can tell that that's an aftermarket fuel pump somebody's added, so like I said, this has been apart and someone's gone and tried to fix it, but obviously not hard enough because it doesn't work properly. So I'm just gonna pop out this little jet right here. And what I also like to do is remove the high and the low mixture screws if you're going to clean this carburetor. Make sure if they look exactly the same that you don't mix them up, because sometimes one's longer than the other. So you've got those two out, you've got that guy out. You don't necessarily need to pull out the needle valve. You can if you want to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little petri dish, which I have right here, and we're going to drop in the little jet, the carburetor. We're not going to bother with this piece because it's clean and there's not really much that can go wrong with it. And we're not going to bother with this either, as it's pretty basic and there's not much that can go wrong with it. So then we take this guy over here to our ultrasonic carburetor cleaner. Drop that in there. Make sure you heat your ultrasonic carburetor cleaner up. It works a lot better with hot water in it than it does with cold water. We sink the carburetor like that. I've got some time here to work on a few other things, so I'm going to put this in for 25 minutes. So I'm going to tinker on a couple other things, sort some tools here, and when 25 minutes is up, I'll turn the camera back on and we'll put this cart back together and see if we made any difference in the runnability of the saw. Alright, so we got our carb cleaned in the ultrasonic cleaner. What we're going to do is take some compressed air and dry the cleaning solution off of the different carburetor parts. Got our little jet right there, our carb body. So gently. Kind of just blow it off. Want to get rid of all that water. And now we're going to do is put this baby back together. Starting with the two jets. So when we took them out, we laid them down so that the low mixture adjustment and the high mixture adjustment screws don't get mixed up. Now you need to reset these, provided nobody's gone and messed with these and twisted them all to hell before you got to the job. Generally, the way to set these up is you turn them in all the way till they stop gently. So right there. And right there. And then you want to turn them both out about 1.5 turns each. So half turn, 1.5, half a turn, 1.5. That's roughly the area you want to get started. Now, if somebody's gone and twisted these all up and damaged the ends inside the carburetor or the tips of the screws, there's nothing you can do. You're going to have to get a replacement carburetor for your machine. We're going to hope that that hasn't happened. So we're going to throw this. Oh, don't forget to put the jet back in before you cover up the carburetor, because you have to pull it all apart again. Trust me, I've done it a few times. Turn that baby back in. Just snug, you don't have to crank on it. And then we've got our diaphragm. Like I said, this diaphragm's borderline. I would, if I had one, I would replace it, but we're going to see if we can get by without replacing it on this machine. It may very well need one, but judging by that fuel pump, it looks like this has already been changed once before. Hopefully not too long ago. So we just throw those two screws back in. It's probably good to do this once a year to your saw anyways. If you don't use it much, just take the carb off and clean it out. Make sure you know what you're doing, because if you put it back together wrong, you could damage the saw or the carburetor, and you'll have to replace it anyways. So now we throw the fuel pump back on. There. We have no parts left over on the bench. That's always a good sign. Oops. Okay. So now we're going to take this carburetor and reinstall it on our saw. Alright guys, so we're going to throw this back together. We got our carburetor back together. So we pull our fuel line out of the way. Slip carburetor down onto saw. Connect fuel line. Fuel line might, like I said before, be defective, which could be causing our trouble, but we're going to just give it a try, work with what we got. Take your throttle linkage. Do this in this reverse order that you took this thing apart. Just sits in there like that. Pop that in, so you got some throttle. Then we have our choke. Something like that. Oop, just popped out. Try it again. All right. So there's your choke, which is good. Now we had a wire disconnect, sits, I believe, right in there like that. Turn this saw off and makes a connection, so that looks good. Now we've got our sleeve with our high and low adjustment and our idle adjustment. This was incorrectly installed before, so I'm going to try to get this in there. And hopefully it'll fit a little better than when we took it apart. Right. Something like that. Hopefully it goes like that. Then we'll throw our intake manifold back on. We got two 8mm nuts. One, two. Turn this baby down to weak. I always like to torque these things by hand. I don't like using power because you don't get the feel for it sometimes and you'll end up stripping something or making something not strong enough. So basically like that. Throw our air filter back on, like so. Like so, and then we've got our handle. Got our Torx. Tighten that back down. Alright. So there's no parts left over on the bench. This is always a good sign. Once again, we're going to throw our air box back on top. Now, the carburetor is not dialed in. It's not set, but it's probably pretty close to where this thing should run. We can fine tune it. Shortly after, I'm going to give this thing a few pulls and see if we get some fuel primed in the carburetor. Bunch of fuel in there. And see if this thing responds a little better. Choke off. better than when we started this video out. I'm going to do a little fine tuning on the carburetor. You can hear it's pretty close the way it is. I don't think we really need to mess with it, but I like to just double check to make sure it's in the right spot, and can take this baby out and do some cutting with her. Thanks for watching. Alright, so I'm going to make a quick video here on how to set the carburetor up on one of these MS250s. I'm going to include the video as part of the carb job video that I just made, but I'm also going to post this video separately so that if you're just looking at how to set up a carburetor, you can skip the carburetor cleaning job and get right to setting the carburetor. So what you got on the saw is a low mixture, there's an L there, low mixture adjustment screw as part of the body of the saw. And then on the cover, you can see there's a H for a high mixture adjustment screw, which sits just beside it. And then down at the bottom, you've got your idle speed, not a mixture screw, idle speed. It indicates here that you want 3/4 of a turn out on the high to start with and 1 on the low. I set both of those to 1.5, and the saw seemed to run good. But we're gonna set it now. I'm gonna show you how to do this. YouTube got rid of annotations, so I can't put notes on the screen to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to try to explain it. Just keep an eye on the screwdriver and listen to the way the saw runs, and you'll kind of figure out what I'm doing. I'm going to turn in the high adjustment screw until the saw begins to stutter and stall out, and then I'm going to back it out till it reaches its high point of RPM, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the high mixture screw with the throttle pinned, so that we reach the high point, and then I'm going to back it off a little bit so that you can just hear a rich thud come out of the saw. So we're going to give this a try. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll see. So I just shut it off real quick. You could hear how that saw reached a point where it was revving at a peak, and then it started to fall off the edge and stutter. So I backed it back to that peak, and then I turned it back about another 1/2 turn, 3/4 turn, till it dropped down just to the point where it's climbing the peak. That's generally a good place to leave your idle mix adjustment screw. Again, it'll be different if you're on the top of a mountain or down by the water because of the air density, but for where I'm at today, that seems to be a good spot. So I'm going to fire it back up now, and we're going to set the high mixture screw. So same thing, you could see how I turned in that high mixture screw until the saw reached its peak and started to go over the edge and bog down. So I turned it back to the peak, and then I brought it just to the climb on the peak to where you could hear it start to make sort of a 4-stroke thud sound. Typically that's about as much as you need to do to get one of these set up. If it's a bigger saw, you want to run it a little bit richer for when it works, but these light duty homeowner saws, generally that spot is close enough to where they need to be to work properly. Yeah, there you go. Thanks for watching.